by the cold concrete drain, by your Pentridge apartment, smashed out of your brain. Hard times are coming for what you've been through. They'll call your name, take the stand, prove what he did to you. Skateboards in the mornings, Nintendo in the afternoon, water fights, BMX, things kids get up to, down on your corner. The friends played their games, his eyes followed you around, drinking the day away. The cricket in the summer, the footy in the spring, he was another friendly neighbour. You asked him to join in. When the game was over, he gestured to your friend, disappeared together toward Mary Creek Parkland. The third week of December, the school holidays, when he rang your doorbell, knew your parents were away. They said, never talk to strangers, cross out the lights, walk against the traffic, don't stay out late at night. In the back of your mind, his words like a bore, your parents will be angry, you dirty little whore. You smiled at your father, they spoke down the street, joked about the cricket and what's on TV. Never talk to strangers, cross out the lights, walk against the traffic, don't stay out late at night. Never take a ride with a man that you don't know. Don't open the front door when you're left home alone. Now you're under the palm trees by Coburg Lake. You watch from the rotunda, your kids play their games. You know you're a survivor, others didn't make it through. There's no one else to testify, it all comes down on you. Never talk to strangers, cross out the lights, walk against the traffic, don't stay out late at night. Never take a ride with a man that you don't know. Don't open the front door when you're left home alone. Never talk to strangers, cross out the lights, walk against the traffic, don't stay out late at night. Never take a ride with a man that you don't know. Don't open the front door when you're left at home. 'Cause down on that corner, kids still play games.
Cat Canteri, welcome to The Right Note.
Thank you.
Now, you're a drummer vocalist with the Stilsons, solo artist, you play with Justin Bernasconi, Alison Ferrier, Jeb Rowe and others, you co-run your own label. There's even a rumour you might be the new INXS frontman. Possibly not true. Are you trying to make us all feel inadequate, or you just don't like having an empty minute in your day?
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those people that doesn't like to have any empty moments in the day. I'm always, I guess, I'm always on some kind of passionate trip about one thing or another, if it's not, you know, songwriting or drumming or, you know, running or skateboarding as is for me at the moment. It's something else. So yeah, I never find myself with a lack of things to wanting to be doing or striving for or getting involved in.
Inner North, it's your second album solo, as a solo artist. So songwriting took a back seat most of the time? Did you have to try and set aside room in your incredibly packed schedule to find songwriting time?
I think I had to it was more about making a choice to try and have free time.
Do you know what that is?
Yeah, well, no, I'm not great with having free time. So I think, yeah, I had to really, with writing a lot of the songs on this album, I had to give myself, you know, large patches of time where I didn't actually have anything on. So just having like a whole day off at home where I wasn't necessarily telling myself that I was going to write, but just not scheduling things in, you know, because sometimes, you know, as other songwriters will know, you know, if you get on a thread of a song, you don't want to let that go until you've explored everything, until you feel like you've just worn it out and you can have a break. You don't want to, it's really, for me, I find it really hard to kind of get into that creative space if I know that I'm going to be going out to dinner in an hour, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I guess I had to set aside time and where I just didn't have anything booked in.
Songwriting on this album, the quality of songwriting is really impressive. But what's also interesting about what you've done with these songs is many of them seem to come from a community very much like the area you grew up in, and a community feel in terms of the stories feel like people we know, people you grew up with, and obviously some of them would be imagined and some real. But how much of your childhood in Northcote is in this album?
Oh, I think it's kind of a hard question to answer, I guess. I think that there's, I guess it's hard. I mean, I think with the record, what happened was, you know, it was sort of like a collection of songs, and I had a name for I had the record finished, I had a name for the record, and I'd contacted my friend Les Thomas, you know, who was saying who'd contributed to some of the songs, and it's like, oh, this is the name of the album, and blah, blah, blah. And he also did, you know, the graphic design for me and stuff. And he gave me a call, and, you know, he was on speakerphone with his wife, and they were like, look, what the name of the album that you've chosen is not the right name. The name of the record should be Inner North, and that's because, you know, the thread that ties all these songs together is not just, you know, where they're set, but it's also about, you know, you as a person, you're very connected to your community, and, you know, your sense of place in the world is really connected to your community, and that's really central to your identity, and you can hear that in your music. And they sort of went on this big rant to me about, you know, the album's name is Inner North, and I was like, yep. So
as you say, sometimes you don't know what it is that connects or works until somebody else shows
yeah,
it to
sometimes it's not as obvious when it's your own work. But yeah, I guess yeah, I think there's bits of my childhood that are in the record that are not necessarily obvious, you know, to the listener.
Well, songs like Fitzroy Bowl and Pentridge Wasteland, they're tough stories, and they sound like someone maybe sent a Four Corners crew down to film the story. I mean, they're drawn from grassroots experience, and as I said, they're tough stories. That you don't shy away from toughness in tough results and tough circumstances in your stories.
Yeah, I guess with both of those songs, they're both personal in different ways, I think. And I guess with both of those songs, I didn't really know or understand at the time when I was writing them where they were coming from. The song Pentridge Wasteland is about as you know, it's about a sexual assault survivor. And the song, what's happening in the song is that it's the person's preparing to testify in court, and they're dissociating from their own experience. So it's sort of flashing backwards and forwards in time, and they're describing their own experience in second person. And yeah, I guess what happened with that song is it was, I think I started writing it, we're 2018 now, it must have been 2016 or the early 2017, and I was, you know, I'd done what I was saying to you before. I'd set aside all this time to write, and I was sitting in my backyard underneath this beautiful this magnificent lemon tree. I was sitting under the lemon tree writing music, and I'm a big Radio National addict, so I'm constantly listening to the radio, and, you know, every day at that point in time, there'd be, you know, daily you'd have like these sort of, you know, horrific kind of revelations coming from the Royal Commission into Institutional Child Sexual Abuse. And yeah, I guess it really just kind of triggered something in me, and I actually sort of flashed back to this incident that happened to me when I was 16, where there was a man who lived in my street, and you know, he basically tried to come on to me when I was 16 years old. I went round there, and I was at his house, and yeah, so, and then subsequently, a couple of years after that, he went to jail for rape, and then came out of jail and went to jail again for rape, both for they were children, you know. So yeah, I guess when I was writing that song, there's a lot of my own personal experience in the song, but I guess when I was writing it, I was actually thinking about, you know, the person who this man raped, and I was thinking about what it would be like to be this person, and to, you know, to have suffered what they suffered, and what that would be like. But, you know, a lot of the language in the story, you know, looking back on the song with like fresh eyes of, you know, someone who I wrote it, you know, 18 months ago. Yeah, there's a lot of my own experience in the story, you know, like the opening scenes of it where, you know, the person's talking about, you know, playing out in the street with their friends and kicking the footy and playing Nintendo. You know, that was my childhood, you know, like I was, you know, I lived in an amazing community, you know, almost every house in the street had children in it, and when I got home from school, I would just head out the door and down the street and go and play with my friends, like every day after school for like, you know, 5 or 6 years, and it was a beautiful thing, you know, like everyone, all the parents knew each other, they all felt safe, and but we had this man that was living in the street that you know, was a sexual predator, and yeah, I guess it really kind of sent shockwaves through the community when he committed this crime and went to jail, and yeah, I guess for me, I think writing the song Pentridge Wasteland was looking back, was really about me understanding what had happened to me as a child, you know, because sometimes I think when you're 16, you don't feel like you're a kid, but you are. You're just a child, and yeah, and when I started writing this song, I realised that I'd never actually told anybody about what had happened with me with this man. Like I hadn't told my parents, I hadn't told my sister, I hadn't told my brother, I hadn't told my partner, I hadn't told anyone. And I didn't actually realise that until that moment of when I started writing the song, and I was like, oh, Jesus, like, you know, you've kept this in all these years, like, and then I started wondering, you know, what effect that had had on me, just keeping that kind of, you know, bottled up all that time.
Yeah, the stuff that was in you, it comes out at the least expected moment.
Yeah.
But channel it. But as tough as that song is, for me, it's not even the toughest song on the album. The historical story, Bridget Agnew. I mean, the line, you know, run to the Agnew house, no one was found, 2 babies and a mother had drowned. What's the story behind that song?
Well, the story is my partner and I were asked to be part of this project that was happening as part of our local music festival called the Darebin Music Feast. And a friend of ours, Aileen O'Hanlon, had come up with this concept to get local songwriters to go through the Darebin Heritage Archives, which is basically a local history archive, and to find just fodder for songs, you know, like letters, stories, photographs. So anyway, we went through this, the Darebin Heritage Archives, and we found this article, which was from the Age newspaper from the year 1857. I think it was written just before Christmas. I think it's like the 20th of December. And it detailed the murder-suicide of Bridget Agnew, who was a young Irish immigrant who'd come to Australia in her late teens. And yeah, I think she was 23 years old at the time, and she'd drowned her 2 children in the watering hole that was on the rural property where her and her husband were living at the time. And, you know, there were quotes in this article from her husband who's basically saying that, yeah, I'd been down the pub and I came home and I was drunk and I beat on her. And, yeah, and she Bridget Agnew was also pregnant at the time that this happened, so she's taken the lives of her 2 children, she's taking her own life, and she's also taking the life of her unborn child. So it's a really dark story, and I guess we were really moved by it, and I guess we were sort of sitting there trying to put ourselves inside the experience of what it would be like to be a 23-year-old woman living on the land with an abusive partner, and, you know, long before there was any form of birth control, you know, in some kind of hell. And with this song, I think that the reason it's important is because, you know, these kind of events that I'm talking about, you know, parents taking the lives of their own children, domestic violence, these things happen all the time. Like, they still happen in, you know, 2018. And it rocks communities, you know, to the core when those things happen, and it's incredibly difficult to talk about. And I think that, you know, when you're singing about these kind of events in a historical context, it's much easier for people to kind of to take and to empathise with, because it's something that's happened in the distant past. You know, it's much more confrontational if you're talking about something that's happened in the present. Yeah.
I think probably need to shift gear out of the heavy stuff for a bit. You didn't play drums on this album.
No, I didn't.
Justin
Olsen.
Olsen, who played drums. Do you think for him it was a bit like Taylor Hawkins coming into Foo Fighters and thinking, Dave Grohl checking out every move? Was he thinking, am I going to play this the way that the Cat would do it?
Maybe. I'm not sure. Like, we have had chats about it. Just him kind of saying stuff kind of to that effect, like going, "Oh God, am I doing the right thing?" But yeah, I mean, I asked Justin to play drums with me after I recorded my first album, and the reason I asked him to play drums with me is because he's one of my favourite drummers, and I've just got so much respect and admiration for what he does as a musician, and I love the you know, the stylistic and the sonic choices that he makes, and I totally trust him and love working with him, and it's you know, it's kind of a selfish thing too, because if I play with him in my band, I get to listen to him play all the time, which means that I'll play more like him when I play drums.
As with everything you do, it's about the connection, the community connection, sort of connection in the area, connection with the musicians you make. That's the core of what you do. Okay, well then, as a final question tied to that, given you are someone for whom collaboration and connection with other artists is really vital, is there someone that you'd like to, ideally, you'd love to collaborate with, share a microphone with, pull in, work behind?
Look, I think there have been a lot of people. There are a lot of people, and I'm someone who has grown up really putting... I've always looked up to local songwriters and local musicians. They're like, all my heroes are people who are, you know, mainly Melbourne musicians and Melbourne songwriters, and I'm definitely guilty of putting people on pedestals and that sort of thing, and I think that that's not always a great thing to do. But yeah, there are a lot of people that I would love to work with, but one of the, you know, I don't want to name names because I think that, you know, I'm actually trying really hard just as a person to not, you know, raise people up to this kind of godlike status that I have in my mind in the past, because I just don't think, it just makes it impossible to talk to people. You know, you try to go and like, and you know, these are people like, we're not friends, but like they know who I am, and if we're out, they'll say, "Oh, hey, Cat," and like, you know, every time that happens, like I die inside, you know, and I just can't talk to them because I just idolise them, and it's just impossible for me to bring them down from this kind of these heights that I've raised them up to, and I'm really trying to stop doing that because I just don't think it's healthy. You know.
Well, I won't feed the beast then.
Yeah.
I won't encourage you to do that.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, Cat Canteri, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Still morning, water birds warbling. My babes ate their bread and butter in bed. A dull ache lingered on the side of my head from your fist and these words you said. If you're going to leave, that's fine. You know to leave our babies behind. Quiet, calm, you'll hear no alarm and never see them again. The struggle so brief, the silence so deep. My girls lay still neath the water. Their flesh came from mine, no time to cry. Our souls will be free of my torture. We traveled to visit our neighbor who was in the family way. A small pile of cloth lay beside their well, so my son pulled our cart up with caution. Fish in the bundle with a stick. My breath drew a pain so fast and so thick. Ran to the Agnew house, no one was found. Two babes and a mother drowned. The struggle so brief, the silence so deep. We dragged them all from the water. To heaven with the children that fought you. My workday dragged on, I long to be home. I feel that I must make amends. This morning I said goodbye, you gave no reply. I understand we don't fight that often. If you're going to leave, that's fine. You know to leave our babies behind. As you turn to leave the paddocks of Preston, the rest of your life you'll find. The struggle so brief, the silence so deep. My girls lay still by the water. Their flesh came from mine,